What if the only person who saw the truth about betrayal wasn't a lawyer, a partner, or even family? But the poor cleaner everyone ignored. One warning, one choice, and the next day, the billionaire CEO's world exploded in ways he never imagined. This isn't a story about just money and power. It's about trust, loyalty, betrayal, and how sometimes the people who save us are the ones we overlook the most. Imagine being at the top of the world, thinking you're surrounded by friends, when suddenly someone whispers, "Sir, he's not your friend. He's your enemy." Most people would laugh it off. But for Daniel Carter, a billionaire CEO, ignoring that warning nearly cost him everything. And what happened the next day? That's what will shock you. So keep watching, because by the end of this story, you'll question the faces sitting right next to you too. Daniel Carter wasn't born rich. He grew up in a small town in the Midwest, where his father worked construction and his mother stitched clothes to keep food on the table. He dreamed big, studied harder than anyone else, and clawed his way into a top university on scholarship. By 35, he was the face of Carter Developments, a real estate empire that touched every corner of the city. Skyscrapers that kissed the clouds, hotels that glowed like palaces at night, luxury condos where the city's elite lived. If it was tall, shiny, and expensive, chances are Daniel's company owned it. On paper, he had everything. A penthouse with glass walls overlooking the skyline, a collection of sports cars lined up like a showroom, recognition in Forbes as one of the youngest self-made billionaires. But even the strongest towers can collapse if the foundation cracks. And Daniel's biggest crack was his blind trust in one man, Richard Hale. Richard wasn't just Daniel's business partner. He was like a brother. They met in college. Daniel was the dreamer, Richard the charmer. Where Daniel was cautious, Richard was bold. Where Daniel worked quietly, Richard knew how to talk his way into any room. When Carter Developments took off, Richard became Daniel's right hand. If Daniel was the face, Richard was the strategist. Together they were unstoppable. But here's the thing about charm. It can hide knives sharper than steel. Elena Johnson worked in one of Daniel's hotels. She wasn't a manager, not a guest, not someone who made headlines. She was the cleaner, the one pushing the cart, polishing the marble floors, dusting the chandeliers others walked under without a glance. To most, she was invisible, but cleaners see everything. They hear the whispers in empty hallways. They notice the late-night phone calls behind closed doors. They catch the expressions people hide when they think nobody's watching. Elena didn't care about billionaire politics. She worked 12-hour shifts, sent money back to her sick mother, and tried to stay out of trouble. But fate doesn't ask for permission. It was past midnight when Elena was finishing her rounds on the executive floor. The hotel was quiet. Just the hum of air conditioners and the shine of freshly polished marble. As she wiped down a table outside the executive lounge, she froze. Through the door, Richard's voice cut sharp like a knife. "I told you, he trusts me completely," Richard hissed into his phone. "Tomorrow, once the contract is signed, the money will be in our account. Daniel won't even see it coming. By the time he realizes, the company will be mine." Elena's hand trembled so hard she dropped her cloth. She held her breath, afraid he might hear. But Richard kept talking, darker with every word. Betrayal, fraud, a plan to strip Daniel of his empire overnight. Her heart pounded. She could have walked away, pretended she heard nothing. But she remembered her mother's words. Do the right thing, even if it costs you. Morning sunlight filled the hotel lobby. Elena waited near the corridor where Daniel usually passed before heading to his car. She rehearsed the words in her head again and again. "Sir, he's not your friend. He's your enemy." Then she saw him. Daniel Carter in his tailored suit, exuding confidence,
carrying the weight of billions on his shoulders.
For a moment, Elena's courage faltered. Who was she, a cleaner, to warn a man like him? But then she stepped forward, hands clasped, voice trembling. "Sir, please." "He's not your friend. He's your enemy." Daniel stopped. He looked at her like she was speaking another language. "What do you mean?" he asked. Elena swallowed hard. "I heard Richard last night. He's planning something against you. Please don't trust him." Daniel almost laughed. "Richard? His brother in everything but blood?" It sounded absurd, but something in Elena's eyes, the fear, the honesty, unsettled him. He nodded politely, said thank you, and walked away. But deep inside, a seed of doubt had been planted. Doubt in the boardroom. That afternoon, Daniel sat across from Richard in the boardroom. The long table gleamed under golden lights. Executives gathered, contracts ready. Richard smiled, confident as ever. "Brother, today we make history," Richard said, sliding a folder toward Daniel. But Daniel's hand hesitated above the pen. He heard Elena's words echo in his head. "He's not your friend. He's your enemy." He signed nothing. Instead, he excused himself, claiming he needed to review the final numbers. Richard chuckled, thinking it was typical Daniel being cautious. But for the first time, Daniel wasn't cautious about business. He was cautious about his so-called best friend. That night, Daniel couldn't rest. He opened his laptop, dug into financial records he hadn't checked in months. Hours passed, and what he uncovered was worse than he imagined. Millions siphoned into offshore accounts. Shell companies under Richard's name. Properties funneled away in secret deals. Richard had been bleeding Carter Developments for years, hiding the wounds under Daniel's trust. And tomorrow's contract would have been the final dagger, transferring ownership of their biggest asset to Richard. Daniel sat in silence, his chest heavy. The man he trusted most was about to destroy him. The next morning, Daniel walked into the boardroom with fire in his eyes. Richard was waiting, smiling, contract ready. "Let's finish this," Richard said. Daniel didn't sit. He placed a thick folder on the table. "You've been stealing from me, Richard," he said, his voice steady. The room fell silent. Executives froze. Richard laughed nervously. "Daniel, come on. What are you talking about?" Daniel opened the folder. Evidence spilled across the table. Bank transfers. Forged signatures, shell companies. Richard's face drained of color. He stammered, "This is a mistake." "Someone set me up." But before he could spin more lies, security entered. Daniel had called them hours earlier. They dragged Richard from the room as he screamed, "You'll regret this, Daniel." Daniel leaned back in his chair, shaken to his core. His empire had been seconds away from collapse. But one poor cleaner's courage saved him. He found Elena later that day, still polishing tables in the lobby like nothing happened. She looked up, startled to see him. "You were right," Daniel said softly. "You saved my life. And my company." Tears filled her eyes. "I just told the truth, sir. You chose to believe it." Daniel made sure Elena's mother got the medical treatment she needed. He gave Elena a scholarship to study, a chance at a life beyond cleaning floors. For Daniel, the experience was a brutal reminder. Trust is fragile. Betrayal cuts deep, and sometimes the loudest truth comes from the quietest voices. So what's the takeaway? It's simple. Not everyone who laughs with you is your friend. The real enemy might be sitting right beside you. And sometimes, the people society overlooks are the ones who'll save you. Daniel learned it the hard way. But because he listened, just once, he survived. If this story shocked you, wait until you hear the next one on your screen right now. It's even more unbelievable.